Right. This is the after hours session. This is our second time that we're doing this uh, for students here. And this is actually the first semester that we're doing this. So we'll start this. The topic of this session, it's about conflict management. And we will have two presenters. One will be myself, and my name is Edgar Monroy. I work at the grad school, and I'm getting my degree right now in economics. To tell you a little bit about my background, I can say that I don't know if it's a good thing or bad thing, but I've been involved a lot with conflict management during my career. My background is in human resources. So I deal a lot with arbitrations, problem-solving cases, and deal with situations different type of situations in the past. So that's a little bit about me, and I'll be presenting at the beginning and at the end. And I have with me my coworker, and I'll let her to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, my name is Karen, and I know Edgar has had a lot of HR experience with conflict management. I'm a PharmD student, so I'm studying pharmacy, and I feel I'm in a role where I'll be in charge of managing a lot of people. So as a pharmacist, you're managing technicians and other employees. So I feel, this is a way that we can all take something from it to learn how to manage conflict in different scenarios.
That's right. So we want to make this session a little bit more interactive. So during the whole presentation, we invite you, if you want to share some situations that happened to you, that they work for you, you can share with us so we can learn from that as well. So we will start with something that happened to me years ago. I was assigned to go to one of our branches in the company, and I needed to help with a project. And my second week in this branch, I arrived to my work, I parked my car, and right after I parked my car, I had 5 employees just waiting for me in the parking lot. You could tell that they were upset. And so they explained me the situation, that morning, their leadership made an announcement that they were going to change their schedules. They used to work from 7 to 7, but now they were going to start at 5 in the morning to 5 p.m. in the afternoon. And they give them 3 days to make any arrangements in their personal lives so they can arrive on time. And of course, they were upset about that because there was not enough time for them to make some adjustments to their personal lives. And but they didn't want to talk to their leadership. They didn't want to express their concerns, and there were only 5 employees coming to me, and everybody else just kept quiet, didn't say anything, and they just went home. And I was upset, to be honest. I was with employees. I thought that was unfair. I think it was unfair to the rest of the leadership of that site because it was going to impact everybody else on the morale and the productivity. So I went and talked to them. I went to talk to them, to the leadership, to understand what was going on. And a couple of things that I could take out from that meeting with them was that the reason why they changed the schedule and why they didn't communicate to everybody was because they were not ready to have conversations with employees about the plans. They didn't want to spend time to talk to them and explain about the reasons behind it, because they assumed that the employees were not going to be happy anyway. So they took that determination that assuming that employees were not going to be happy anyway, but it has to be done somehow. So with that experience, I learned a lot about communication and about how can we improve that in any situations. And it happens a lot. Conflicts is something that we cannot plan. It can happen tomorrow. Maybe it's happening in your own life right now. So let's start with that. So what are some conflicts? What can you think about some of those subjects or maybe situations that are not easy to handle? It's hard for you to go and tell that person, hey, this is what I think you're doing wrong, or hey, I don't like the way you're doing this, or the way you know, things that, can you think about some things that are not easy for you to handle, like to talk to the person right away, even though you want it? Can you think of anything? You can just use the chat, or you can just unmute yourself and just let us know. Think for a few seconds on that.
Oh, I want to share something. Hello, everyone. I remember one student, because I used to grade this a lot, like in my country. I'm from Chile, by the way. And some of my students were upset about the grades that I gave them, and they started fighting me, even though I was not the professor. All the grades were approved by the professor. So all the bullets went to me, and it was very difficult, so, especially at the beginning, because for me it was like, why are they asking me about this? I cannot change it. Yeah. And it's difficult to calm them down. That's my issue, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And we'll talk a little bit later about that. Some tools that we can use to help us with that. What else? What else do you think it's a little bit challenging for you to talk with someone or to let someone know? And for example, for me, something that is very challenging is to tell someone, right, at work or my friends, someone that is close to me, to tell them something about their personal hygiene. At work, it's a little bit difficult, I can tell you that, because you have to be very careful how you approach someone about their personal hygiene, because you never know, it's for religious reasons, for personal health issues, the reason that they cannot do some stuff. And so you have to collaborate with someone on that. If you get to that position where you got it, it's too much, the smell and all that. So talk to your supervisor, to your boss, or talk to human resources to help you, to guide you, and how can you approach that type of situations. Now, you talk about class. That's a good point, because there are some hot topics in class that can come up, and like you say, the feedback that you receive, it's maybe a little bit aggressive, or they don't really want to listen. So that's very important to know. So if you loan money to someone and they're not paying you back, so it's hard to ask them to pay me back, right? So that's another situation. And giving your feedback about to someone, right? You disagree with something, or you didn't like the way they help you in a project, or someone is coming late, it's not doing his part, or someone is leaving early. It's some of those situations are a little bit tricky, a little bit hard to handle. So hopefully in this next slides, we'll give you some suggestions, some advice. It doesn't mean that you can go ahead to the next slide. Okay, thank you. So these steps that we're gonna go through are not the only ones. These are just suggestions that we're giving you, so you can use it, apply it, and maybe combine some of them to help you deal with with conflicts and how to have those conversations. So in the first part of these steps, Karen will take you to the preparation part before you have those one-on-one conversations with someone. What can you do? What can you do to prepare yourself before you're going and talk to someone? So I'm going to give the time to Karen to take the rest of these slides.
All right, thank you, Edgar. So yeah, like Edgar was mentioning, these are just suggestions of things that you can do, steps that you can take to resolve a conflict. It's not necessarily that each one of you is going to apply to you. Of course, you have to take into consideration your situation, what's going on. That way you can apply what's relevant to you or not apply something if it doesn't apply to you. So the first thing that we want to do is to move towards the conflict. We don't want to be avoiding it. And so, whenever a conflict arises, the best way to take care of it is to approach it. If we're just avoiding it, not taking the time to resolve whatever is going on, or the problem can just get bigger over time, or it can just be causing a lot of problems for us. So just to take into consideration, so we want to be moving towards the problem. What are some of the costs and some of the benefits that you all can think of when there's a conflict, the cost of not speaking up, how this conflict might be making you feel, how is the future if this conflict is not resolved, and then the benefits. So you have basically the pros and cons. So the benefits, so what will improve once you address this conflict? What skills can you learn along the way? And what other benefits will you experience? And I'll give a few seconds, if there's anyone that can think of a cost and a benefit of addressing a conflict, or of not addressing a conflict.
Well, Alexis says stress. Yes, that's true.
Yeah, so that is one of the costs. So increased stress, that lack of peace of mind. It can also maybe mean that you need to work on your problem solving skills. If you're in a team and there's a conflict, it can also reduce the efficiency of your team. So you're not able to work towards the goal of your team. And it can also lead to dissatisfaction in your workplace, at school. So these are these can be some of the costs of not addressing the conflict, and the benefits. So the benefits of addressing and tackling on a conflict, it's going to build trust among you and the other person. It's also going to build a better sense of safety. It can save your relationships. If there's a problem between you and a friend or a colleague, and you're able to address that conflict efficiently, it can actually save that relationship you have with them. It can also build up a sense of connection and of teamwork. So these are just some of the costs and benefits. Of course, there's probably others that you all can think of, but these are just some. And the next thing we want to do is understand the conflict. So understanding what is the situation, what we want to happen during the interaction, what outcome do we want for both parties, what influencing factors might there be, and any triggers. And, ask yourself, when approaching a conflict, asking yourself, what question can you ask to understand and address the conflict? Of course, you don't want to go with the other person and ask them, like, what is your problem? We want to approach it in a way that is efficient, that doesn't make the other person feel like we're attacking them, but that we're on their side and that we're just trying to understand, so you're able to resolve the conflict. So some questions that you can ask to understand and address a conflict is, what do you think about this problem that we have? Or asking them, could you help me understand whatever the problem is? How can I be of help? How could we fix this? Or how can we address these? So this is not a limited list. It's just a matter of thinking of ways that you can approach someone and help them understand that, you're trying to address the problem and that you're trying to fix it, so things can improve for both parties. And then the next thing we want to do, what we're going to talk about is, so there are different ways to approach a conflict. Everyone is going to resolve a conflict, address a conflict in a different way. So these are just some of the ways that this can be done. And as I'm going through this, try to think about which category you might be fitting into. So we have accommodating, avoiding, compromising, collaborating, and competing. And maybe you might already have an idea of which category you fit into, or maybe in some scenarios you'll fit into you'll be approaching a conflict in one way, and for another scenario you'll be approaching it in a different way. So the first style is accommodating. So on this one, we're focusing on the needs or wants of the others rather than on our own. And so this is kind of like in the picture that I have right here. Whenever there's a conflict, you're just like, okay, whatever you say, we can do whatever you want to do. You really focus more on their needs. And sometimes we might want to use this if you're wrong, or if you don't care about the issue as much as the other person, if you want to just keep the peace and not stir any conflict, or when there's no point in arguing with the other person, if you know that the other person is not going to change their mind. So there's scenarios when you might want to use this style of approaching a conflict. And the next one that we have is avoiding. So in this scenario, both parties are trying to ignore the situation. And like in this image that I have right here, so everyone is running around with a box on their head because no one wants to address whatever that conflict is. And when to use this, so if the conflict is meaningless, when you don't have time to manage the conflict, maybe you already have so much on your plate with school and work, and this is just not something that you feel is worth your time. Or also when you aren't sure about how you feel about the issue yet, you can use this conflict style as well. And the next one is compromising. So I feel this is one of the styles that is most commonly used. You do something and then they do something else. So it's a give and take. So each of the parties involved are willing to engage in a give and take, and both of their interests and goals are considered. And when you want to use this, when you're trying to reach a solution, when reaching a solution is more important than the problem itself, or if you need a temporary solution, or if you're just trying to stand still. So this is a give and take. If you're willing to have some of your needs met and, let go of other things, and the person is willing to do that as well, then, this is a style that you might want to be using in that scenario. The next one we have is competing. So this is when you're taking a firm stance in what you want, and you refuse to budge until you get what you want. So it's either your way or nothing at all. When to use it? So of course there's scenarios when you might want to use it. So for example, if you're standing up for your rights, your values, your morals, if you're standing up for yourself, this is a style that you want to use to approach this conflict. You could also use it when there's less forceful conflict management, if there's a less forceful conflict management styles being ineffective, or if you've tried other ways of approaching the conflict and there still hasn't been a solution that has been reached. So you might want to use this style. And then the last one that we have, which is one of the best ways that you can approach conflict, is because everyone will be satisfied in this scenario. It's not like give and take, that you're losing some things and winning other things. This is, everyone is happy and satisfied with the result of the conflict resolution. You'll want to use this when the relationship is important. So, maybe at work, maybe with family, friends, when there's value to keeping that relationship. When another time you can use this, when the final solution can have a significant impact, and when the interests, needs, and beliefs of everyone is involved and they all need to be considered. So this is a win-win scenario. And, this is another style that you can use to solve a conflict. And so, just to summarize the 5 different styles that we talked about. So we have accommodating, avoiding, compromise, and competing and collaborating. So in competing, one party wants to win regardless of the impact of the other party. In collaborating, both parties win. In compromise, both parties win, but then they also have to give up something. In avoiding, you just ignore, suppress the conflict. And in accommodating, one party yields and then the other party wins. So that's a win-lose scenario. And then, so now that we talked about the different conflicts, I created this little match the conflicts with the style. So for example, feel free to type your answer in the chat or say it into the, or unmute yourself, unmute your microphone. So for example, the first one, during a natural disaster, multiple agencies gather people to go assist those in need. So which one do you guys think that is?
Should be collaborating.
Yeah, that one's collaborating. Perfect. So everyone's going to help these people. Everyone's winning in the scenario. The values are shared within these agencies because they all want to go be of assistance. And how about the next one? So you decide that you're willing to come in this weekend to work if your coworker comes in the following weekend.
Yeah, I also think it's compromise.
Yeah, and so this one is compromise. So you're willing to do something and lose something else. You're willing to lose this weekend, but then you'll get next weekend off. And the next one, your department challenges another department to see who could come up with the best idea to impress the CEO and get money for their department.
Competing.
Yes, perfect. Yes. Competing.
Uh-huh.
And then you see your coworker who you have a conflict with, and as soon as you see them, You walk the other way.
Completely avoiding.
Yes, completely avoiding. And then the last one, when trying to decide on a project with your lab partner, you allow them to choose whatever they want because you don't want to argue.
That is accommodating, right?
Yeah, that's accommodating. So on this one, you know, you don't want to spend your energy on arguing with them about the topic. You just let them choose whatever they want. All right, thank you everyone for sharing. And yes, all of your answers were correct. So you're able to identify what style, you were able to identify what style was used in each of these scenarios. And then these are just the answers which you all shared with us.
Ooh.
And then I'm gonna go ahead and let my colleague Edgar take over from here.
Thank you, Karen. So we talk a little bit about some of the things that we can do. We can prepare ourselves before approaching any situation, and probably some of those things that Karen mentioned are very familiar to you because we use it, even though we don't know the specific principle of concept behind it, but we used it in the times that we've been in conflict. And if you can think of situations in the past, you will see that you've been already using some of those styles. Okay, so now that we talk a little bit about the preparation, what can you do to prepare yourself and make decisions and how to handle the situation? Now you have to take the next step, which is having that one-on-one with someone, or maybe more than one. So I have if you can go back to the beginning of the slide, Karen. Okay, so this is just something that I read a long time ago. So I give you the time to read it, but I can read it. So it says, whenever I get mad at you, you never seem to get upset. How do you manage to control your temper? I just go and clean the toilet. So the next slide. So the husband get confused and asks the question, how does that help? And she answered, I use your toothbrush. So silence, you know, sometimes silence can be really dangerous in some situations, or how do we handle our conflicts? So on the next slide, I'm gonna show you a little bit about preparation. How can you prepare yourself when you're ready to go and talk to that person or to that party. So know your heart. That's something important that you have to do before approaching any type of conversation that it's difficult for you to handle, but you want to solve that problem. And one of the things that you have to know is about perceptions. As human beings, we are tempted to build stories in our minds, make assumptions, and already have answers before we talk to someone, before we talk to the other party. So we already have that in mind. And if you go to a conversation having already a conclusion, I can assure you it's not going to go well. You may feel that it went well for you, but maybe the other person didn't see it that way. So you have to manage your perceptions. Perceptions is very important. So if you feel that you have that in your mind before you're going to have that conversation, and you already have, oh no, they told me this about her, about him, and I know that happened, even though you don't have facts, you only have what people said, or maybe something that your brain already built for you, and you don't have the whole truth. So if you have that type of ideas in your mind, just stop and go with an open mind and remove those perceptions before you're moving to talk to that person. Emotions is another thing. Another thing that you have to be able to recognize your emotions. And here are 3 questions that I put there that I invite you all after this session or tomorrow morning, sometime this week. If you can think, you can put a list in your mind or somewhere in your notes and just list of the things that make you angry. What makes you upset? What other people? Maybe we can, right now, we can talk a little bit about it. If you can share with us a little bit of some things that make you upset, make you angry. Like I shared with my team weeks ago, months ago, about me, what annoying me of other people, especially when they come to my place, is like the toothpaste, when they squish the toothpaste from anywhere without starting from the bottom. So that makes me upset sometimes. What else? So what do you guys think? Things that make you upset?
I don't know. For me, it's like when with another person we decide that things should be on some way, and that person is not compromising to what they already said. That really makes me upset.
Yeah.
Because the person already said that it will do that job on that way, and I accommodated to that style, for example, of work. It's
That's
complicated.
True.
Yeah.
Oh, that's true. That yeah, it happens to me too. So yeah, so like that, we have a lot of things. Probably besides those, you have other things that you see in others and makes you upset, right? Their actions, their behaviors that make you upset. So that's what I invite you all to take a list or put in your mind some of the things that make you upset, and also think about how your emotions manifest on you. You know, how and also how do you manage that? So Alexis says, when people don't see the other side of the story, yeah. When you don't see the whole picture, yeah, it's upsetting when they start judging you before they know everything. So how your emotions manifest on you, how do you manage your emotions? Those are important points before you go and talk to someone, because that's knowing yourself, knowing what makes you upset. How can you tell that you're getting upset, and how do you manage that? And managing, I mean, like, what's better for you? What works for you? Can you share a little bit about that? Like, how do you manage your emotions when you're happy, when you're sad, when you're upset? What do you do? What helps you to control those emotions? Alexis says meditations and the gym. The gym, yeah, that's true. Yeah, even though it seems like weird, but no, I'm with you on that. In the gym. Yeah, go for a long walk. That's what I do. Like, there are many times when I get upset and I don't want to say what I'm feeling. So I just take a 5 minutes break, go around the block and come back. So that's always good to do. So you know how you can manage your emotions. So when you're having those conversations, because I can tell you from experience that not every conversation will be like we're having right now, like back and forth. Very simple. No, there'll be times when people will be yelling at you. They'll be insulting you. They'll be saying things that probably make you angry. So that's important for you before you go to those conversations. You already know how are you going to manage your emotions. So what makes you upset? So you're at least you know yourself before going to those difficult conversations. Another thing is being positive. See the big picture. It's like you were saying that, you know, about judging or when people don't see the other side of the story. That's very important because it goes together with perceptions. So don't go to the meeting with already a conclusion. This is what I want from the meeting. and this is what's going to happen. No, go with an open mind that the other person maybe has another point of view that I don't see it. So be positive when you're going to that meeting. Avoid silence, because if you show the facts, if you during the meeting show the facts, you say you're coming late. I noticed that lately you've been coming late to class. You've been coming late to help us with the project. And when you show the facts, people get defensive, and they will make two choices. They'll get upset at you, they'll start arguing with you, or they'll be quiet and they will shut down themselves, like they won't talk, right? So if that happens, especially when people get silent, if they shut down, they're there listening, they're not answering any questions you have, it's a good point to stop and ask more questions and empathize with the person, and maybe letting them know that understanding that this is it's not easy for you, and I know it's not easy for them, but it has to be solved. So don't follow that lead where the other party is silent and then you also be silent. No, you're the one who can lead the situation and make sure that the other party is listening, but also it's sharing their thoughts. The winning mentality, again, it's don't go with that idea that it's my way or the highway, that I need to win this conversation. I need to win in this conflict. And there are situations that people that have that mentality that it's about winning, because they can go after the meeting and say, hey, I had the conversation with that employee and I won. I did that. During union meetings, I used to see that type of mentality, which is a different scenario, but in general, it's not a good go with that mentality of winning. Now, in this part, I want to share a little bit about mirror neurons. And I'll be quick because we're running out of time, but this is important. This is an interesting concept, and you probably seen it. We've seen it. Like, I can give you an example, like when someone is getting a shot, right? Flu shot or something, and you're there with that person. And you will have a reaction, right? Like, that your friend or whoever is getting the shot probably will feel the pain. You don't, but you make gestures, you maybe have a body language that shows that you're feeling the pain too. For many years, scientists were trying to understand why that happened. Why, when I see someone, I want to copy, I want to empathize, I like when someone is crying, why I have that feeling that I want to cry too. And it was in 1990. It was in the University of Parma, Italy. They were studying neurons in a monkey. And they were looking into when the monkey was raising his arms, they noticed that the neurons were firing it up just when they moved their arms. But one day, one of the grad assistants came to the lab with an ice cream. And he was moving his arm from down, going up towards his mouth to eat his ice cream. And they noticed that the monkey wasn't moving at all, but they noticed that the neuron was firing her up. He wasn't moving his arms, but he was just looking at that grad students eating his ice cream. So every time the student ate his ice cream, the neuron starts firing her up. So that's when they learned that also in humans, later they discovered, they confirmed that also humans have that mirror neurons in our brains. meaning that's the reason why we feel the same way the other person feel. And when someone get upset, get in your face, you react, and you also start yelling, start raising your voice and putting his, being in his face or her face too. And that's important, because if you go to a situation and you're upset already, you're very upset, and you go and talk to that person, what you're doing is you were letting that person also feel how you feel. And what's going to happen? It's not going to end up well. You're going to have not a good conversation. It's not going to end up in a good conversation, and it's not going to have a solution. So that's important for you to know, because when you go to a conversation and you're peaceful, you're positive, you're calm, that other person will feel that. And even though that person may be the one who is very upset in the meeting, he enters the room already upset, but you are the one who is calm, you're going to see that person is going to change slowly. It's going to get calm and get to your level to have that conversation. That really happens, and that's really good tool that you can use when you're having those critical conversations, when you're dealing with the situations that that the other person is going to get upset. So just think about that. Mirror neurons. Okay. So the next step is about safety. And one important thing, and probably this goes with the comment that you made about the students complaining about their grades. So one of the things that we can do in class, I guess, and probably you do this, is the syllabus helps a lot, right? To help us understand the rules and what's going to happen during the whole semester, what could happen if you get bad grades, this is what's going to happen. So you can always go back and say, I understand you're upset. This is, and no one wants to get a lower grade. But at the beginning of the semester, we talk about this situation. You have the syllabus, you have the expectations. And that's how you can approach situations like that. But when you're having those conversations, and as I said, most of the difficult conversations involves a lot of emotions, and it may not come from you, it may come from the other party. So when you feel that person is being disrespectful, or you already know that that person is going to be really upset, it's going to start yelling, so one of the things is to setting some rules. When you're starting the meeting, before you start the meeting or in the middle, whenever you feel necessary, you can stop the conversations and say, hey, this is what we're going to talk about. I know it's not going to be easy for you. It's not going to be easy for me. But I want this conversation to be respectful and with dignity, and specify and the focus about the meeting and what you want to accomplish with the meeting. So when you set those expectations at the beginning, it helps a lot to make the other party feel safe. That, okay, so there's some rules, I'm safe, I know what's going to happen. Because usually when you call someone to your office, or you call someone to go and talk, and you just use those words, hey, I need to talk to you. When you just use those words, it can be very stressful for that person who hears that. So it's always good when you start a meeting, set some expectations about the meeting, what's going to happen. And you can even say that, okay, so if you're going to get really upset, you're going to keep raising your voice or making gestures, we may have to stop the meeting now, but it doesn't mean that it's over. We will come back tomorrow. We will come back at this hour, and we will continue this. But we're going to have this conversation. So you can do that. And even if the person, I had many situations where the person just left the room without saying anything. get upset and left the room. You can always go follow that person, or just let it go for a few minutes and then go find her and say, we're not going to talk about this right now, but we need to talk this sometime this week or tomorrow. We cannot let this go. So you can use those tools on that situation. And empathy is very important when we're having this type of conversations, as I said earlier, and paying attention to the body language and how they're expressing themselves. So that can help you a lot to understand maybe they're not safe in this situation right now. So let's stop this meeting and go have the meeting on the next day or a few hours later. Okay, so let's go to the next slide, which is the next step, which is managing the exchange. So it's always good to be quiet. You explain what you see, you explain your facts, and always is good to ask them, this is what I know, this is what's happening, but help me understand. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe you know something that I don't know. Can you explain me a little bit on that? So then you stop talking and just listen. Even though it may go different ways, and try to bring that person back and tell them that, no, we're talking about this situation right now. We can talk about the other situations later, but I want you to focus on what we're talking about right now. Because you will see always, not always, but very often, the other party always brings stuff like that happened like 3 months ago, a year ago, and things that are irrelevant for the conversation at that moment, because probably you just want to focus on one thing that happened recently. So you can always bring that back using those words, right? Let's talk about this right now. And always ask for clarification if you need. And something that I learned, I call it the white lie, is when sometimes they just want to be heard, and especially when they're trying to work on something and no one is listening, and they mention that to you, and you already know how to use that machine, how to use this tool, how to use this application. Maybe you already know, but that person, the other party, wants to explain you how that works. And then you can just take a few minutes and say, okay, well, tell me a little bit more. I don't know much about it. Can you explain me a little bit more? That will give him or her an opportunity to explain a little bit and know that you're really listening, and that you're trying to solve the problem. That it's not only you the one speaking. And again, your emotions are very important during the exchange, and focus on the facts. And that's when I say, like, share what you know what people told you, but things that you know, because you saw it, it was on the system, it was on the email, it was in the text, something that you know it happened. Because if you go to a person and say, I heard that you say this, the other person probably won't take that statement very well. So it's always good to focus on the facts when you're sharing your story, and then let them share their side of the story. Okay, you can go next slide, Karen. And this is the last part, which is the going from the conversation to actions. It's always good to, the last point that I put there, document. Documentation is very important. But also this step, the last step during this conflict management is actions. Because if you have that conversation, if you plan what you want to accomplish with the conflict, and then you have the conversation with that person or the other parties, and no one does anything after that, probably you're leaving the door open for keep happening in a different way or the same way. So it's always good when you have that conversation. At the end of the conversation, make assignments. Maybe if you guys are disagreeing on something, just tell them, hey, okay, from what I'm here, I can do this. I will improve my behavior, my performance in this area, but also I want you, I expect you to do the same in your area. So you guys can get an agreement. Like Karen said, there's some give and take. That's when you have to, use any of those styles that works for you. So make assignments, and if not coming from, if it's coming from only one party, then make sure that assignment it's complete, and have a periodically follow up. And during that conversation that you're having, make sure that they know that, okay, so I'm going to do this and I expect you to do that. And we'll meet in about 3 weeks and see how are we doing, and go like that. One thing that I can encourage you, if you get to that point where you need to talk to someone, you're in this situation with in a conflict with someone, and you get to this point where after the conversation everything went well, it's always good to shoot an email to that person, maybe after an hour, and just a bullet points or in a sentence, just say, hey, per conversations that we have today, I appreciate your time, blah, 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 blah. And then you can put, we agreed that we're going to be doing this, and I will be doing that. And just say again, thank you. Right? Thank you for the willingness to have that conversation with you. And then you can send that email to that person. I say this because it's very important if in the future that comes up again, like after a few months, you already have the conversation 3 months ago, and again, it's coming back, the situation. Then you can always go back to that documentation and as a proof, say that, hey, we talked about this before, what's happening. Because there are many times when you don't document and the situation comes back to you, the other person will be easily telling you, I don't remember. I don't remember everything we talked. But with documentation, you can go back and say, I sent you the information just at the summary before. So you were aware that what we talk. So it's very important to have documentation of those situations. And that's pretty much all the steps that we want to share with you about conflict management. There are some styles that you can pick, and ways that you can approach the conversation that you have with someone. Hopefully, this was very useful. I know it's not something that you will be proficient like tomorrow after this training, but it takes practice. And that practice is just like Karen said, like you have to move forward. Don't avoid the situation, right? So, and as long as you practice with all that, it will be very helpful for you to be efficient in managing your conflicts with others. Okay, so do you guys have any questions, any final comments, anything that probably we didn't mention and you think it's important for us to also learn?
For me, it was so clear. Really, thank you so much for the presentation. It was so clarifying for me.
Okay, thank you. And I encourage you, UTEP has a conflict resolution website. If you Google, if you go to the UTEP search engine, you can learn a little more about education, about school tools that you can use and how to manage those situations as well. Okay. If there are not any other questions, Karen and I, we thank you for your time and for joining and participating on this training. We'll be also recording this and we'll be posting it on our website. So thank you so much for your participation.
Thank you everyone for joining us today. You all have a good evening.